As the winter night descended upon the great hall at Trondheim, King Harald Hardrada settled onto his elevated bed platform. Servants had already banked the central hearth fire to a gentle glow, and the thick woolen curtains surrounding his sleeping area were drawn against the bitter Norwegian cold. The king's day had begun before dawn with military training, followed by hours of judgment and council, a hearty midday feast, an afternoon rest, more council meetings, and finally an evening of saga-telling and mead. Now, as the hall quieted and darkness enveloped the landscape, Harold prepared for what modern science would recognise as an ideal night's sleep, one that would restore his legendary strength and sharp mind for the challenges of rulership. What if the secret to perfect sleep has been lost to history? While we struggle with insomnia, sleep disorders, and the constant interruption of screens and artificial light, evidence suggests that Viking kings and nobles of the 8th to 11th centuries may have experienced sleep quality superior to both their contemporaries and to us in the modern world. The Viking Age, 793 to 1066 CE, represents a fascinating period when environmental conditions, cultural practices, and lifestyle factors converge to create what might have been ideal sleeping conditions for Norse elites. Archaeological discoveries from sites like Jorvik, modern York, the Oseberg ship burial, and the reconstructed farmstead at Stang in Iceland, combined with literary evidence from the Icelandic sagas, Eddas and other Norse texts, reveal a sleep culture remarkably aligned with what contemporary sleep science now recognises as optimal. This exploration is not merely historical curiosity. Understanding how Viking kings slept offers insights into our own relationship with sleep, and how far we've strayed from practices that once came naturally. From their seasonal adaptation to extreme northern light conditions to their use of specific herbs and sleeping arrangements, the Norse elite developed sleep habits that modern sleep researchers would approve of, even envy. As we journey through the sleeping practices of Viking nobility, we'll meet characters like King Harald, the shield maiden Thyra, who served as a royal bodyguard, and Halfdan the healer, with his extensive knowledge of sleep-inducing remedies. Their stories, while fictionalised, are grounded in historical evidence, and illustrate how the Norse approach to sleep supported their legendary vigour and resilience. Was the Viking reputation for ferocity and endurance partly due to their superior sleep? Let us explore how these northern rulers mastered the art of restorative rest, and what lessons we might reclaim from their forgotten wisdom. The first key to understanding Viking sleep superiority lies in their geographic location. The Norse homelands of Scandinavia sit at high northern latitudes, creating dramatic seasonal variations in daylight that shape their entire relationship with sleep. King Olaf Tryggvason stood at the prow of his longship as it navigated the Norwegian fjords in midsummer. Though it was near midnight, the sky remained bathed in twilight, the famous white nights of the north. The king's body had naturally adjusted to this phenomenon. During summer months, he and his warriors slept less but more intensely, maximising the extended daylight hours for raids, trade, and construction. In summer we live as the gods intended, Olaf often told his men. When Suld's chariot barely dips below the horizon, we take our strength from her constant presence. Archaeological evidence from Norse settlements reveals a people intimately attuned to these natural light cycles. Unlike medieval kings further south, who increasingly relied on artificial light to extend their waking hours, Viking rulers worked with nature's rhythms rather than against them. This seasonal adaptation created a fascinating pattern. Concentrated activity during the bright summers, followed by periods of extended rest during the dark winters. What modern sleep scientists find remarkable about this pattern is how perfectly it aligns with our understanding of human chronobiology, the body's internal clock. The pineal gland produces melatonin, our primary sleep hormone, in response to darkness. In the absence of artificial light, Viking nobles experienced a natural surge of melatonin during winter's extended darkness, promoting deeper and longer sleep periods. Gudrid, wife of a prominent jarl in Iceland, oversaw the household's transition to winter sleeping arrangements each autumn. As daylight diminished, she ensured that beds were moved closer to the central hearth, and that extra furs and woolen blankets were distributed. The family's sleep schedule shifted naturally, with earlier bedtimes and later risings. During the depths of winter, when darkness might last for 20 hours or more, the household would often experience what she called the double sleep. A long night's rest interrupted by a peaceful waking period of quiet activity before returning to slumber until dawn. This practice, which might seem strange to modern sleepers, matches what historians and sleep researchers now call biphasic, or segmented sleep, a pattern believed to be natural to humans before artificial lighting altered our sleep architecture. Evidence from Norse sagas and archaeological findings suggest that Viking elites embraced this natural rhythm rather than fighting against it. The seasonal variations in Norse sleep patterns offered another advantage. They prevented the circadian disruption that plagues modern humans. Today, we maintain the same sleep schedule year-round despite seasonal light changes, often relying on artificial light that suppresses melatonin production. Viking kings, by contrast, allowed their sleep timing to shift with the seasons, maintaining alignment between their internal biological clocks and external environmental cues. Could this seasonal flexibility have contributed to the legendary mental acuity of Norse rulers? The Icelandic sagas frequently describe kings and jarls making complex decisions and remembering intricate details of law and lineage, cognitive abilities that modern research links to quality sleep. King Harald Fairhair, who unified Norway in the 9th century, was said to remember the names and deeds of warriors he had met only once, a feat that might be partially attributed to the memory consolidation that occurs during proper sleep cycles. Archaeological evidence from high-status burials like the Oseberg shipgrave reveals another aspect of this seasonal adaptation: the presence of bed furs from animals with winter coats, suggesting that Norse elites understood the importance of maintaining proper body temperature for sleep. Modern sleep science confirms that slight cooling of the body core is essential for initiating and maintaining deep sleep, something Viking nobles achieved naturally through their use of breathable natural materials that insulated while allowing heat regulation. The Norse relationship with seasonal light extended beyond practical adaptations to include spiritual dimensions. The winter solstice celebration of Yule marked the return of lengthening days and was considered a powerful time for dreams and visions. Saga literature records instances of kings receiving prophetic dreams during this period, suggesting that the Norse elite viewed winter's deep sleep as a time of special connection to the spiritual realm. As we consider the first advantage Viking kings held in their quest for perfect sleep, their harmony with natural light cycles, we might wonder, what happened when they travelled south on raids and trade missions where light patterns differed? Evidence suggests they carried their sleep wisdom with them, creating darkened sleeping quarters in foreign halls and maintaining their biphasic sleep patterns, even when visiting Christian courts further south. This adaptability, combined with deep respect for natural rhythms, gave Norse rulers a foundation for sleep quality that most modern humans can only dream of achieving. One of the most striking differences between Viking sleep and our modern approach lies in what sleep historians call biphasic, or segmented sleep, a pattern that appears to have been normal throughout much of human history until the Industrial Revolution. Jarl Sigurd of the Orkney Islands woke naturally in the middle of the night, the great hall around him quiet, except for the occasional crackle from the banked hearth fire and the deep breathing of his household. This midnight waking was not insomnia, as we might think of it today, but a natural interval between what the Norse called first sleep and second sleep. The Jarl rose quietly, added a log to the fire, and poured a small horn of mead. He spent this peaceful hour in contemplation, reviewing the day's events and planning tomorrow's shipbuilding project. Sometimes he would use this time to compose poetry or pray to the gods. By the time he returned to his bed for his second sleep, his mind was clear and his thoughts ordered. This biphasic sleep pattern appears consistently in Norse literature and archaeological evidence. The Havamal, a collection of Old Norse poems from the Poetic Edda, contains wisdom about proper sleeping habits that aligns with this pattern, advising alertness even during rest periods. References in the sagas to characters rising in the night for specific activities, prayer, vigilance, or intimate conversations, suggest this was not considered unusual, but rather a normal part of the sleep cycle. What makes this revelation so significant is that modern sleep science has only recently rediscovered the concept of biphasic sleep. Groundbreaking research by historian A. Roger Ekirch in the early 2000s revealed that before artificial lighting became common, humans typically slept in two distinct segments of approximately 4 hours each, with a wakeful interval of 1 to 2 hours in between. This pattern appears to be more aligned with our natural biology than our modern expectation of a single consolidated 8-hour sleep period. For Viking kings and nobility, this midnight waking served multiple purposes. First, it provided a period of quiet contemplation, rare in the busy life of a ruler. Modern neuroscience suggests that this kind of wakeful rest between sleep periods is ideal for memory consolidation and creative problem solving, both essential skills for effective leadership. Thyra, a shield maiden who served in King Harold's personal guard, valued the midnight waking as a time to check the hall's security. A wise warrior uses the night's middle hour to ensure all remains well, she would tell younger guards. The gods grant us this time of clarity between dreams. Archaeological evidence from high-status Viking longhouses shows architectural features that would support this practice, including central pathways that allowed movement without disturbing sleepers, and elevated platforms where guards could maintain vigilance during these midnight hours. The midnight waking also serves social and intimate functions. Saga literature contains numerous examples of important conversations happening during this interval. The Laxdæla saga describes husband and wife discussing important family matters during the night wake, while other texts mention kings receiving messengers or holding private councils during this time. For Norse elites, this period provided a rare opportunity for uninterrupted conversation away from the constant activity and limited privacy of daytime in the Great Hall. This biphasic pattern offered physiological benefits as well. Modern sleep research indicates that interrupted sleep, when it follows the natural pattern of completing a full sleep cycle before waking, does not have the negative effects of the fragmented sleep many modern people experience. In fact, some studies suggest that this biphasic pattern may better support the different types of sleep our brains require. During first sleep, Viking nobles would have experienced a higher proportion of slow-wave sleep, SWS, the deepest, most physically restorative sleep phase. The midnight waking then provided a natural break before second sleep, which typically contains a higher proportion of REM, rapid eye movement sleep, associated with dreaming, emotional processing, and creative thinking. This natural segmentation may have optimized both types of sleep in ways that our modern consolidated sleep fails to achieve. The Norse cultural attitude toward dreams and night visions further enhanced this practice. Dreams were considered significant communications from the gods or the dead, particularly for kings and jarls who were believed to have special connections to the divine. The Heimskringla, a collection of sagas about Norwegian kings, records numerous instances of rulers receiving prophetic dreams that guided their decisions. The midnight waking provided time to reflect on dreams from first sleep, potentially enhancing their recall and interpretation. A practice supported by modern research showing that dream recall is strongest immediately upon waking. Perhaps most intriguing is how this biphasic pattern might have influenced Norse creativity and problem solving. The sagas are filled with instances of kings and jarls finding solutions to complex problems after a night's rest. Modern neuroscience has confirmed that sleep, particularly the combination of SWS and REM sleep, enhances creative problem solving through a process called sleep-dependent memory evolution, where the brain forms new associations between existing memories. By embracing rather than fighting against natural biphasic sleep, Viking rulers may have optimized this cognitive process. King Olaf Haraldsson, later known as St. Olaf, was described in sagas as often announcing solutions to complex disputes in the morning that had seemed intractable the previous day, a phenomenon that might be explained by this enhanced, sleep-dependent problem-solving. How drastically different this is from our modern approach, where waking in the night is considered a sleep disorder to be medicated rather than a natural opportunity for reflection and creativity. The Viking acceptance of biphasic sleep represents not primitive ignorance, but a sophisticated harmony with human biology that we have lost in our electrically illuminated world. As artificial lighting spread throughout Europe in later centuries, this natural sleep pattern gradually disappeared from historical records. By embracing the midnight wake rather than fighting against it, Viking kings may have preserved an optimal sleep architecture that supported their physical recovery, emotional processing, and cognitive function in ways that modern humans rarely experience. The physical environment in which Viking kings and nobles slept represented another significant advantage in their quest for restorative rest. Archaeological excavations of high-status Norse dwellings reveal sleeping arrangements specifically designed to promote quality sleep in ways that align remarkably well with modern sleep science recommendations. When King Canute the Great commissioned his new royal hall at Roskilde, he was particular about the sleeping quarters. "Build my bed platform in the north corner," he instructed his master carpenter, "raised above the floor to escape the draughts, but not so close to the roof that smoke will disturb my rest." The king's bed would be enclosed on 3 sides with carved wooden panels and heavy wool curtains that could be drawn completely around it, creating what sleep scientists today would recognise as an ideal sleep chamber: dark, quiet, and temperature-controlled. Archaeological evidence from sites like Jorvik, York, Hedeby, and the Oseberg ship burial confirms that high-status Vikings invested considerably in creating optimal sleeping environments. Unlike their contemporaries in other European courts who often slept in increasingly grand but sleep-disruptive open chambers, Norse elites typically slept in what amounted to enclosed sleep pods, bed closets, or alcoves that could be completely darkened with heavy textiles. The most striking feature of these Viking sleep environments was their darkness. The Norse lived in a world without artificial light pollution, and their sleeping areas enhanced this natural darkness. Bed curtains and alcoves created what sleep scientists call cave-like conditions, complete darkness that promotes maximum melatonin production. Modern research has demonstrated that even small amounts of light, particularly blue light, can suppress melatonin and disrupt sleep architecture. Viking kings, sleeping in truly dark environments, would have experienced none of these disruptions. Astrid, wife of a wealthy Norwegian chieftain, took particular pride in the sleeping arrangements of their longhouse. "The sleeping platforms must be elevated," she instructed new servants, "and the bed curtains thick enough that not even a candle's light can penetrate when drawn." Archaeological findings confirm this attention to detail. Remains of bed closets from Viking settlements show careful construction, with tight-fitting panels and evidence of heavy textile hangings. Temperature regulation, now known to be crucial for quality sleep, was another area where Viking sleep environments excelled. The Norse understood the importance of warmth without overheating. Excavations reveal sophisticated bedding arrangements, bases of straw or heather for insulation from below, covered with furs and woolen blankets that provided warmth while allowing moisture to wick away from the body. Halfdan the Healer, who served several jarls in Denmark, advised specific bedding arrangements based on the seasons. In winter, place bear furs closest to the body for warmth, with lighter sheep's wool coverings above, he counselled. In summer, use only linen and the lightest wool to prevent the heat sickness that disturbs rest. This seasonal adaptation of bedding material shows a sophisticated understanding of sleep thermoregulation that modern science has only recently quantified. Core body temperature must drop slightly to initiate and maintain deep sleep. The acoustic environment of Viking sleeping quarters offered another advantage. The thick walls of Norse longhouses, often constructed with double layers of timber with insulating materials between, provided significant sound dampening. High-status bed closets added another layer of sound isolation. While lower-ranking members of the household might sleep in more open areas of the hall, kings and jarls enjoyed sleeping spaces where sound was minimised, another factor that sleep science identifies as crucial for uninterrupted deep sleep. Archaeological evidence from sites like Stong in Iceland reveals another ingenious feature of Viking sleep architecture: the placement of sleeping areas in relation to heat sources. Bed platforms were typically positioned along the walls of the longhouse, at a carefully calculated distance from the central hearth, close enough to benefit from radiant heat, but far enough to avoid overheating or smoke exposure. This arrangement created temperature gradients that allowed sleepers to regulate their comfort by adjusting their position or bedding. Could the positioning of the king's bed have served purposes beyond physical comfort? Saga literature suggests symbolic and practical considerations as well. The high seat, haseti, of the king or jarl, his seat of power during waking hours, was often positioned near his sleeping area, creating a continuous space of authority. Some archaeological evidence suggests that royal sleeping platforms were slightly elevated above others, maintaining the hierarchical organisation even during rest. Air quality, now recognised as a critical factor in sleep health, was also addressed in Norse sleeping arrangements. Despite the common misconception of smoke-filled Viking halls, archaeological evidence indicates sophisticated ventilation systems in high-status dwellings. Roof vents were positioned to draw smoke upward, away from sleeping areas, and bed closets often had small adjustable openings for air circulation. The Norse preference for certain aromatic woods in their hearth fires, particularly pine and birch, may have inadvertently created what we might now call sleep-promoting aromatherapy, as these scents contain compounds known to reduce stress and promote relaxation. The sensory aspects of Viking sleep environments extended to touch as well. Textile fragments recovered from high-status burials show that Norse elites had access to surprisingly fine fabrics. Linen sheets, which naturally wick moisture and regulate temperature, appear in several royal-level graves. Wool of varying weights provided adaptable insulation, while fur bedding, particularly bear, wolf and fox, offered both warmth and status symbols. The tactile comfort of these natural materials, free from the synthetic irritants found in many modern bedding products, would have further enhanced sleep quality. What about the mattresses themselves? Unlike the rock-hard sleeping surfaces often depicted in popular culture, archaeological evidence suggests that Viking elites slept on surprisingly comfortable beds. Mattress materials typically included layers of straw, wool, feathers, or down for high-status individuals. The Osberg ship burial, containing the remains of a high-status woman, possibly a queen, included fragments of what appears to have been a feather mattress, a luxury that provided both insulation and pressure relief. For King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark, whose massive royal complex at Jelling marked the height of Viking Age power, the royal bedchamber represented both comfort and security. Historical records and archaeological evidence suggest his sleeping area was positioned to allow quick access to weapons and escape routes if needed, a reminder that even in sleep, a king's safety remained paramount. This security consideration likely contributed to deeper, more restful sleep by addressing what sleep psychologists recognise as a fundamental human need: feeling safe while in the vulnerable state of sleep. As we examine the physical sleep environment of Viking royalty, a picture emerges of sleeping arrangements that were not primitive, but rather sophisticated and aligned with the body's natural sleep requirements. The darkness, temperature control, sound dampening, air quality, and tactile comfort of these royal sleep spaces created conditions that many modern sleep scientists would consider ideal, and that many contemporary humans, despite our technological advantages, fail to achieve in our light-polluted, noise-filled, temperature-controlled but poorly ventilated modern bedrooms. The Viking approach to nutrition, particularly among the elite classes, created another significant advantage for sleep quality. Archaeological evidence from Middens refuse heaps, isotope analysis of skeletal remains, and literary references provide a detailed picture of the Norse diet that aligns remarkably well with what modern nutritional science identifies as sleep-promoting. Jarl Erik of the Trøndelag region hosted a midwinter feast that followed the traditional pattern. The main meal served in mid-afternoon, well before sunset. Platters of roasted venison, smoked fish, fermented dairy, and hearty barley bread were consumed alongside measured horns of mead and ale. As darkness fell, only lighter foods were offered: nuts, dried berries, and small portions of cultured milk. By the time the saga telling began around the hearth, the heavy digestion of the main meal was complete, allowing both host and guests to eventually retire without the sleep-disrupting effects of late-night eating. This timing of meals represents one of the most significant nutritional advantages Viking elites held for sleep quality. Unlike later medieval courts where evening feasting became increasingly elaborate and extended into the night, Norse cultural practices typically placed the largest meal of the day in the afternoon. Archaeological evidence from high-status settlements confirms this pattern, with cooking areas showing peak activity several hours before sunset. Modern chronobiology research has demonstrated that meal timing significantly impacts sleep quality. Eating too close to bedtime disrupts the body's natural transition to sleep mode, as digestive processes compete with the body's preparation for rest. The Viking practice of earlier meal timing, with at least 3 to 4 hours between the main meal and sleep, allowed digestive processes to complete before bedtime, promoting deeper sleep and reducing sleep-disrupting acid reflux. Thyra, the shield maiden who served in King Harold's personal guard, maintained strict eating discipline. A warrior who feasts heavily before rest fights battles in dreams rather than recovering strength. She advised younger guards, "Take your main nourishment when the sun is high, so your body is not burdened when night falls." This wisdom reflects an intuitive understanding of what modern research confirms. Late-night eating disrupts both sleep architecture and the body's overnight repair processes. The composition of the Viking diet offered additional sleep benefits. Archaeological analysis of food remains from high-status Norse settlements reveals a diet rich in several nutrients, now known to support healthy sleep. Omega-3 fatty acids. The Norse elite consumed abundant fatty fish like salmon, herring and cod. Modern research has linked these omega-3 fatty acids to improved sleep quality and increased REM sleep. Magnesium. Viking staples included green leafy vegetables, particularly in summer, nuts and whole grains like barley, all excellent sources of magnesium, which helps regulate neurotransmitters involved in sleep. B vitamins. The Norse consumption of organ meats, particularly liver, provided rich sources of B vitamins that support the production of sleep-regulating hormones like melatonin and serotonin. Tryptophan. Viking protein sources, game meats, fish, dairy, provided ample tryptophan, an amino acid precursor to both serotonin and melatonin. Fermented foods. Archaeological evidence shows widespread consumption of fermented dairy, similar to yogurt and kefir, and fermented fish. Modern research suggests that fermented foods support gut microbiome health, which increasingly appears connected to sleep quality through the gut-brain axis. King Olaf Tryggvason was known for his particular attention to pre-sleep nutrition. The Heimskringla records that he preferred cultured milk, with honey and hazelnuts in the evening, a combination that modern nutritional science would recognise as nearly perfect for promoting sleep. The casein protein in milk provides sustained tryptophan release. Honey offers a small insulin response that helps tryptophan cross the blood-brain barrier, and hazelnuts contribute magnesium and healthy fats. The Viking approach to alcohol also differed from later medieval practices in ways that benefited sleep. While mead and ale were certainly consumed in Norse society, archaeological and literary evidence suggests more moderate consumption among elites than is often portrayed in popular culture. More importantly, the timing of alcohol consumption typically occurred earlier in the day, allowing alcohol to be metabolized before sleep. Modern sleep science has demonstrated that while alcohol may help with falling asleep initially, it significantly disrupts sleep architecture, particularly REM sleep, and causes fragmented, poor quality sleep in the latter half of the night. By consuming alcohol primarily with the afternoon meal, rather than immediately before bed, Viking elites avoided the worst of these sleep-disrupting effects. Seasonal variations in the Norse diet created another sleep advantage. During winter months, when darkness extended sleep opportunity, preserved meats, fermented foods, nuts and dried fruits dominated the diet. These foods are generally denser in nutrients like vitamin D, B vitamins and magnesium that support sleep quality. Archaeological evidence from winter middens at high-status settlements confirms this pattern of winter nutrition that inadvertently supported longer, deeper winter sleep. Halfdan the healer understood the connection between certain foods and sleep quality. For those troubled in their rest, he advised, an evening portion of valerian root steeped in warm milk with honey soothes the mind. Chemical analysis of residues from Viking Age vessels has identified compounds consistent with such sleep-promoting herbal preparations, suggesting that Norse healers recognised and utilised the connection between nutrition and sleep. Fasting patterns in Norse culture may have provided yet another sleep advantage. Literary and archaeological evidence suggests that while feast days were certainly celebrated, they were balanced by periods of relative dietary restraint, particularly during late winter, when food stores ran low. Modern research into intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating has revealed surprising benefits for circadian rhythm regulation and sleep quality. The natural seasonal variation in food availability may have inadvertently created beneficial fasting patterns that supported the Viking sleep cycle. The Norse approach to hydration also supported sleep quality. Saga literature frequently mentions the drinking of clear spring water, particularly in the evening. Archaeological evidence from high-status settlements shows sophisticated water collection systems that provided clean drinking water, a luxury not always available in other medieval societies, where weak ale was often consumed instead of potentially contaminated water. Proper hydration without the diuretic effects of alcohol would have reduced the need for nighttime urination, allowing for more consolidated sleep. For King Canute the Great, who ruled both England and Denmark, adapting to different food traditions presented challenges. Historical records suggest he maintained Norse eating patterns, even in his English court, insisting on the afternoon main meal and lighter evening fare despite the increasingly fashionable late feasting in Anglo-Saxon England. This adherence to traditional Norse meal timing may have contributed to his legendary energy and mental acuity, which contemporary chronicles noted even in his later years. The Norse understanding of food's impact on sleep extended to avoiding certain sleep-disrupting combinations. Saga literature contains references to avoiding heavy, fatty meats close to bedtime, an intuitive understanding that aligns with modern research showing that high-fat meals before sleep can disrupt sleep architecture and reduce sleep quality. As we examine the nutritional practices of Viking elites, we see not primitive eating patterns but sophisticated nutritional timing that supported optimal sleep in ways that many modern humans fail to achieve. By consuming their largest meals earlier in the day, emphasising sleep-supporting nutrients, moderating evening alcohol intake, and adapting their diet seasonally, Viking kings and jarls created nutritional conditions highly conducive to quality sleep. Another advantage in their quest for perfect rest. The Viking relationship with plants extended far beyond basic nutrition into a sophisticated understanding of herbs that could influence sleep quality. Archaeological findings, residue analysis from vessels, and references in Norse literature reveal a pharmacopoeia of sleep-enhancing botanicals that would have given Viking elites yet another advantage in their quest for perfect rest. Halfdan the healer moved carefully through the royal herb garden at twilight, selecting specific plants for King Harold's evening drink. "The king faces battle decisions tomorrow," he murmured to his apprentice, "so tonight we prepare the sleep of clarity." Into his gathering basket went sprigs of linden flowers, valerian root, and chamomile blossoms. Back in the preparation area, he would steep these in hot water, add a measure of honey, and serve it in the king's personal drinking horn as the evening sagas began, ensuring that by the time the king retired, the herb's sleep-enhancing properties would be taking effect. Archaeological excavations at high-status Viking settlements have uncovered specialised gardens containing medicinal plants, many with known sedative properties. Pollen analysis from these sites confirms the cultivation of herbs like valerian, Valeriana officinalis, hops, Humulus lupulus, and linden, Tilia cordata, all of which contain compounds now scientifically verified to promote relaxation and sleep. Modern phytochemical research has confirmed what Norse healers apparently knew through observation and tradition. These plants contain bioactive compounds that influence sleep architecture. Valerian root contains valerianic acid, which modulates GABA receptors in the brain, the same mechanism targeted by many modern sleep medications, but without the same side effects. Linden flowers contain flavonoids that have both anxiolytic, anxiety-reducing, and mild sedative effects. Hops contain methylbutanol, which has demonstrated sedative properties. Residue analysis from drinking vessels found in high-status burials has detected chemical markers consistent with these sleep-promoting herbs, suggesting their regular use among Norse elites. The Oseberg ship burial, containing the remains of a high-status woman, included containers with residues of several herbs, known to promote relaxation and sleep. Thyra, the shield maiden, relied on specific herbal preparations before night watches. "When I must wake while others sleep, I take the bitter tea of yarrow and mint," she explained to younger guards. "When I must sleep deeply but wake alert, I take valerian with honey." This differentiated use of herbs for different sleep needs suggests a nuanced understanding of their varied effects, something modern research has only recently begun to fully document. The Norse approach to sleep-enhancing herbs was notably sophisticated in its delivery methods. Archaeological evidence shows specialised vessels for preparing herbal infusions, strainers for removing plant material, and small containers suitable for measured doses. Unlike the crude preparations often associated with early medieval medicine, Norse herbal remedies appear to have been carefully prepared and dosed, particularly those used by elites. The timing of herbal remedies in Norse practice also shows remarkable alignment with modern understanding of sleep physiology. Literary references suggest sleep-promoting herbs were typically consumed 1 to 2 hours before intended sleep time, allowing the active compounds to reach peak blood levels as sleep began. This timing maximises the impact on sleep onset while minimising next-day grogginess, a principle now recognised in modern sleep medicine. King Olaf Haraldsson, later known as Saint Olaf, was recorded as having a particular evening ritual involving herbs. According to saga accounts, he would drink a preparation of linden flowers and honey while listening to evening prayers. Chemical analysis of linden flowers has identified compounds that increase GABA activity in the brain, promoting the transition from wakefulness to sleep. Exactly the effect that would benefit someone transitioning from the day's activities to evening rest. The Norse herbal approach to sleep extended beyond simple sedatives to include adaptogens, herbs that help the body adapt to stress and maintain homeostasis. Archaeological evidence shows cultivation of adaptogenic herbs like ashwagandha, Withania somnifera, which modern research has linked to improved sleep quality through stress reduction and cortisol regulation. By addressing the underlying stress that often disrupts sleep, these adaptogenic herbs would have provided Viking elites with another layer of sleep protection. Seasonal variations in herbal usage reveal another dimension of Norse sleep wisdom. Pollen analysis from high-status settlements shows different patterns of herb cultivation and harvesting throughout the year. Winter preparations often included more potent sleep aids like valerian, while summer formulations featured milder herbs like linden and chamomile. This seasonal adjustment aligns with the changing sleep needs throughout the Norse year. Deeper, longer sleep during winter darkness versus the lighter, shorter sleep of summer. Astrid, the chieftain's wife, maintained the household's herbal stores with careful attention to sleep needs. The winter sleep herbs must be harvested before the first frost and dried properly, she instructed her daughters. The summer sleep herbs are gathered at full moon when their properties are strongest. This attention to proper harvesting and preparation maximised the potency of sleep-enhancing compounds, a principle confirmed by modern research showing that secondary plant compounds vary significantly based on harvest time. The Norse understanding of herbs extended to combinations that enhanced effectiveness. Archaeological evidence shows containers with residues of multiple herbs commonly used together. Modern pharmacological research has confirmed that many traditional herbal combinations produce synergistic effects, where the combined impact is greater than the sum of individual herbs. For example, the combination of valerian and hops found in several Norse preparations has been shown in contemporary research to be more effective for improving sleep quality than either herb alone. The integration of herbal knowledge with other aspects of sleep hygiene demonstrates the holistic Norse approach. Literary references suggest that herbal preparations were part of broader evening rituals that included reduced lighting, quieter activities, and mental preparation for sleep, creating what modern sleep scientists would recognise as an ideal wind-down routine that signals the brain to prepare for rest. For Jarl Erik of Trøndelag, herbal sleep preparations were considered as essential to leadership as weapons training. A Jarl who cannot rest properly cannot think clearly, he told his sons. Learn which herbs bring the deep sleep of restoration and which bring the light sleep of vigilance. Both have their place in a ruler's life. This sophisticated understanding of how different herbs could produce different qualities of sleep suggests generations of careful observation and knowledge transmission. Archaeological evidence also reveals Norse use of aromatic herbs as part of sleep environments. Remains of bedding materials from high-status burials show traces of lavender, thyme, and other aromatic plants with known relaxing properties. Modern research has confirmed that certain plant aromas can trigger relaxation responses through direct action on the limbic system, the emotional centre of the brain that plays a key role in sleep regulation. The Norse herbal approach to sleep was not merely palliative, but preventative. Evidence suggests regular consumption of adaptogenic and nervous system supporting herbs rather than only acute treatment of sleep difficulties. This preventative approach aligns with modern understanding of sleep health as requiring consistent support rather than only addressing problems after they develop. As we examine the Norse pharmacopoeia for sleep, we see not primitive folk remedies, but a sophisticated system of botanical medicine that targeted many of the same neurological systems as modern sleep medications, but with fewer side effects and greater integration into daily life. By harnessing the power of sleep-enhancing herbs, Viking elites gained yet another advantage in their quest for restorative rest, an advantage backed by biochemical mechanisms that modern science is only now fully understanding. The physical lifestyle of Viking elites created another significant advantage for sleep quality, one that modern sleep science has only recently begun to fully appreciate. Archaeological evidence from skeletal remains, activity areas in high-status settlements, and literary descriptions in the sagas all point to a level and pattern of physical activity highly conducive to restorative sleep. King Harald Hardrada rose before dawn for weapons practice, a daily ritual he maintained even as he approached his 50th year. In the training yard behind the Great Hall, he worked with sword, axe and spear until sweat soaked his tunic, despite the morning chill. A king's body must be as sharp as his mind, he often told younger warriors. The day's exertions purchased the night's rest. By midday, he had completed the most physically demanding activities, transitioning to the mental work of kingship, councils, judgments and planning. This pattern, vigorous morning activity, followed by less physically demanding afternoon tasks, created ideal conditions for the evening's sleep. Modern exercise physiology and sleep science have confirmed what Viking kings seem to understand intuitively. Regular physical exertion significantly improves sleep quality, particularly when timed appropriately during the day. Research shows that moderate to vigorous physical activity increases total sleep time, improves sleep efficiency, and enhances slow-wave, deep sleep, the most physically restorative sleep phase. Skeletal remains from high-status Viking burials tell a story of physically active elites. Bone density and muscle attachment sites indicate significant upper and lower body strength, even among those identified as rulers or nobles. Unlike later medieval kings who became increasingly sedentary, Viking rulers maintained physically demanding routines throughout their lives. Isotope analysis of royal remains shows bone and muscle composition consistent with regular, varied physical activity, creating ideal physiological conditions for quality sleep. Thyra, the shield maiden in the King's Guard, maintained a rigorous training schedule that supported her sleep quality. Train hard when the sun climbs, train skillfully when the sun is high, and rest the body when the sun descends, she advised younger warriors. This intuitive understanding of exercise timing aligns with modern chronobiology, research showing that morning and early afternoon exercise supports healthy sleep-wake cycles, while evening exertion can delay sleep onset by raising core body temperature and stress hormones. The variety of physical activities engaged in by Norse elites created another sleep advantage. Archaeological evidence from high-status Viking settlements shows facilities for multiple types of physical training, weapon practice areas, horse riding courses, and even swimming and rowing locations. Saga literature describes kings and jarls regularly engaging in different forms of physical activity, from combat training to hunting, rowing, and competitive games. Modern exercise science has demonstrated that varied physical activity engages different energy systems and muscle groups, providing more complete physical fatigue and recovery needs, which in turn promotes deeper sleep. By engaging in diverse physical challenges rather than repetitive or limited movements, Viking elites created optimal conditions for what sleep scientists call high sleep pressure, the physiological need for deep recovery sleep. The outdoor nature of most Viking physical activity provided additional sleep benefits. Archaeological evidence shows that most training, work and recreation occurred in open-air settings, exposing Norse elites to natural light throughout the day. Modern research has confirmed that daytime exposure to natural light, particularly morning sunlight, helps regulate circadian rhythms and melatonin production, setting the stage for proper sleep timing and quality. Jarl Sigurd of the Orkney Islands maintained his reputation as a fearsome warrior well into his 5th decade, an age when many modern humans begin experiencing significant sleep difficulties. The saga accounts of his daily routine describe morning weapons practice, midday sailing or riding, and administrative duties in the afternoon. This pattern of front-loading physical exertion created ideal conditions for evening melatonin production and sleep pressure, potentially explaining the accounts of his continued vigour and mental acuity. The seasonal variation in Viking physical activity created another sleep advantage. Archaeological and literary evidence suggests more intense physical work during summer months, with somewhat reduced, though still significant, activity during winter. This seasonal adjustment mirrors the natural hibernation tendencies seen in many mammals and aligns with optimal human sleep patterns. Higher activity during longer daylight periods, followed by more rest during darker winter months. King Olaf Tryggvason was renowned for his physical prowess, with sagas describing his ability to climb oars while his ship was rowing and to juggle daggers, skills requiring significant strength, coordination, and regular practice. Historical accounts suggest he maintained these physical activities throughout his reign rather than becoming sedentary with status. This continued physical exertion would have supported quality sleep through multiple mechanisms: appropriate physical fatigue, stress hormone regulation, and maintenance of healthy metabolism. The integration of physical activity with social bonding in Norse culture created yet another sleep advantage. Archaeological evidence shows training areas designed for group activities, while literary sources describe kings participating in physical competitions and games with their warriors. Modern research has demonstrated that social connection, combined with physical activity, provides greater stress reduction benefits than either alone, and stress reduction is a key factor in sleep quality. Halfdan the healer understood the connection between physical activity and sleep. For those with restless nights, he advised, ensure the body's work matches the body's strength. Neither too much nor too little exertion brings proper rest. This nuanced understanding reflects what modern sleep science has confirmed. While appropriate physical activity improves sleep, excessive or poorly timed exercise can disrupt it, suggesting the Norse approach was calibrated rather than simply maximised. The physical demands of Viking leadership extended beyond formal training to include regular movement throughout the day. Archaeological evidence from high-status longhouses shows layouts that required significant walking between different activity areas. Unlike later medieval castles where rulers could remain relatively stationary while subjects came to them, the Norse architectural style necessitated regular movement, creating what modern health scientists would recognise as non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT, which plays an important role in metabolic health and sleep quality. Astrid, the chieftain's wife, incorporated physical activity into household management in ways that supported her sleep. A wise household leader works with her hands in the morning hours, she instructed younger women, plans and directs in the midday, and rests her mind and hands as evening approaches. This pattern, physical work early, cognitive work later, aligns perfectly with what chronobiologists now recognise as optimal timing for supporting healthy sleep cycles. The Norse approach to physical recovery also supported sleep quality. Archaeological evidence shows the use of hot springs, steam baths, similar to saunas, and cold water immersion, practices now known to improve recovery from physical exertion and promote parasympathetic, rest and digest, nervous system activation. Modern research has demonstrated that appropriate recovery techniques not only improve physical restoration, but enhance sleep quality, particularly slow-wave sleep. For King Canute the Great, maintaining physical activity while ruling two kingdoms presented challenges. Historical records suggest he implemented a rotating schedule of weapons training, riding and sailing that ensured regular physical exertion despite his administrative responsibilities. By prioritising physical activity, despite his heavy rulership duties, Canute maintained the physiological conditions for quality sleep, potentially contributing to his effectiveness as a ruler of multiple territories. As we examine the physical activity patterns of Viking elites, we see not just the stereotypical warrior training, but a sophisticated approach to physical exertion that created optimal conditions for sleep, appropriate intensity, proper timing, variety of movement, outdoor light exposure, seasonal adjustment, social integration, and attention to recovery. This comprehensive physical activity pattern gave Norse rulers yet another significant advantage in sleep quality, one that many modern humans, with our increasingly sedentary lifestyles and poorly timed exercise habits, fail to achieve. Beyond the physical and environmental factors that supported Viking sleep quality, the Norse psychological approach to rest represented another significant advantage. Literary sources, particularly the sagas and the wisdom poetry of the Havamal, reveal attitudes towards sleep that modern psychology would recognise as highly conducive to restful nights. King Olaf sat with his closest advisors as the winter storm howled outside the Great Hall. "The snow builds high against our walls," he observed calmly, "and we have food, mead and firewood in abundance. The gods have granted us a time of forced rest. Let us use it wisely." Rather than raging against the inactivity or viewing it as wasted time, the king and his council used the storm-bound days for deep discussion, saga-telling, and extended sleep, emerging with renewed clarity about their spring campaigns once the weather cleared. This acceptance of seasonal rest periods appears consistently in Norse literature and aligns remarkably well with what modern psychologists call radical acceptance, acknowledging reality without resistance, which reduces the anxiety and rumination that often disrupt sleep. Unlike many modern humans who view sleep as unproductive time to be minimised, Viking elites appear to have embraced rest as a necessary and valuable part of life's rhythm. The Havamal, a collection of wisdom poetry attributed to Odin himself, contains numerous verses about appropriate sleep attitudes. One passage advises, "The unwise man is awake all night, worrying about everything. When morning comes he is tired, and all his troubles are just as they were." This 1,000-year-old observation mirrors what sleep psychologists now identify as sleep-preventing cognitive arousal, the racing thoughts and worries that keep many modern humans awake despite comfortable beds and sleep-promoting environments. Thyra, the Shield Maiden, taught younger warriors a sleep preparation ritual. "Before laying down your weapons for the night, lay down the day's battles in your mind," she instructed. "Acknowledge what was done well and what could improve, then release it to tomorrow's self. Tonight's task is only rest." This practice closely resembles what modern cognitive behavioural therapy for insomnia, CBTI, calls constructive worry, addressing concerns during daylight hours to prevent them from intruding during the night. Archaeological evidence supports this psychological approach to sleep. High-status Viking burials often include items related to evening relaxation, game pieces for Tafel, a chess-like strategic game, musical instruments and materials for storytelling. These suggest evening activities specifically designed to transition from the day's concerns to a state of mental relaxation, creating what sleep psychologists now call buffer time between daily stresses and sleep. The Norse concept of fate, Wyrd, may have provided another psychological advantage for sleep. Literary sources suggest that Viking elites embraced a worldview where some outcomes were predetermined while others remained within human control. Modern psychological research has demonstrated that this balanced perspective, accepting what cannot be changed while taking action on what can, reduces rumination and anxiety, two primary causes of sleep disruption. Jarl Sigurd demonstrated this balanced perspective when facing a challenging political situation with neighbouring territories. "We have done what wisdom dictates for today," he told his advisors as evening approached. "Tomorrow's problems belong to tomorrow's minds, refreshed by tonight's rest." This compartmentalisation, fully engaging with challenges during appropriate times while fully disengaging for rest, creates ideal psychological conditions for quality sleep. The Norse cultural attitude toward dreams offered another sleep advantage. Archaeological and literary evidence suggests that dreams were considered meaningful communications rather than random neural activity, giving sleep a purpose beyond mere physical recovery. Modern sleep psychology has demonstrated that viewing sleep as important and purposeful, rather than a necessary inconvenience, improves both sleep quality and quantity through reduced sleep anxiety. Halfdan the Healer understood the connection between mental state and sleep quality. "For those whose thoughts race like summer flies at night," he advised, "sit before your sleeping place and count your breaths until 50 have passed, focusing only on the air entering and leaving your body." This practice closely resembles modern mindfulness techniques proven to reduce pre-sleep cognitive arousal and improve sleep onset latency, the time it takes to fall asleep. The communal evening activities in Norse culture created another psychological advantage for sleep. Archaeological evidence from high-status longhouses shows central gathering areas where saga telling, music, and conversation would occur before sleep. Modern sleep research has demonstrated that appropriate social connection in the evening reduces stress hormones like cortisol, creating ideal physiological conditions for subsequent sleep. King Harald Hardrada was known for his evening ritual of listening to skalds, poets, recite verses about historical events and ancestral deeds. Beyond entertainment, this practice served what modern psychology would recognise as several sleep-promoting functions, shifting attention away from immediate concerns, creating a predictable pre-sleep routine that signals the brain to prepare for rest, and ending the day with positive, meaningful content rather than worries or planning. The Norse approach to leadership transitions also supported sleep quality. Literary sources suggest that kings and jarls typically delegated nighttime authority clearly before retiring, designating specific individuals to make decisions if needed during the night. This complete transfer of responsibility allowed for psychological disengagement from leadership burdens during sleep hours, something many modern leaders fail to achieve with our 24/7 connectivity and constant availability. Astrid, the chieftain's wife who managed the household, practiced this delegation before sleep. "Until morning light, Gunhild holds my authority in the household," she would announce before retiring. "Wake me only if fire threatens or enemies approach." This clear boundary setting created the psychological safety needed for deep sleep, the certainty that one's responsibilities are covered, allowing for complete mental relaxation. The Viking cultural attitude towards sleep timing shows another psychological advantage. Unlike modern humans who often feel anxiety about specific sleep schedules or duration, Norse literature suggests a more flexible approach based on seasonal light, immediate needs, and natural tiredness. This reduced sleep performance anxiety, the pressure to sleep at certain times or for specific durations that paradoxically makes sleep more difficult. For King Cnut, whose responsibilities spanned 2 kingdoms, this flexible attitude proved advantageous. Historical records suggest he adapted his sleep patterns to the demands of rulership rather than maintaining rigid schedules, sleeping more when circumstances allowed and less when necessary, without the anxiety about perfect sleep that plagues many modern humans. The Norse religious worldview may have provided yet another psychological advantage for sleep. Literary sources suggest that night was considered a time when the boundaries between worlds thinned, a sacred period when gods, ancestors, and humans could communicate through dreams. This perspective gave sleep spiritual significance beyond physical restoration, potentially reducing the sleep-preventing anxiety that comes from viewing rest as unproductive time. As we examine the psychological approach to sleep in Viking culture, we see not primitive simplicity, but sophisticated attitudes that created ideal mental conditions for quality rest. Acceptance of natural rhythms, compartmentalization of concerns, meaningful evening wind-down activities, clear delegation of responsibilities, flexible adaptation to changing needs, and spiritual significance attached to sleep itself. These psychological factors gave Norse elites yet another significant advantage in sleep quality, one that many modern humans, despite our advanced understanding of sleep science, struggle to achieve in our anxiety-filled, always connected world. The social organisation of sleep in Viking society, particularly among elites, created another significant advantage for rest quality that modern sleep science is only beginning to fully appreciate. Archaeological evidence from longhouses, literary references in sagas, and comparative anthropological studies reveal a communal approach to sleep with surprising benefits. In the Great Hall at Trondheim, King Harald's household settled into their sleeping arrangements as darkness fell. The king and queen occupied their curtained bed platform at the northern end, while warriors, servants, and visitors arranged themselves throughout the hall according to status and function. Thyra and 3 other trusted shield maidens positioned their sleeping places nearest the king's platform, close enough to respond instantly to any threat. The arrangement was both hierarchical and practical, creating concentric circles of protection around the royal couple while fostering the security that comes from human proximity. Archaeological excavations of high-status Viking dwellings consistently reveal this pattern of communal sleeping within social hierarchies. Unlike later medieval castles where rulers increasingly isolated themselves in private chambers, Norse elites typically slept in the same great hall as their household, albeit in more elaborate and private sleeping areas. This arrangement created what anthropologists call social thermoregulation and vigilance sharing, evolutionary advantages that modern sleep science has identified as beneficial for sleep quality. A wise leader sleeps within hearing of his people, Jarl Erik often told his sons, for in their security he finds his own. This intuitive understanding reflects what evolutionary psychologists now recognise. Humans evolved sleeping in groups where collective vigilance against threats allowed for deeper, individual sleep cycles. By maintaining this ancestral sleep pattern, rather than isolating themselves, Viking rulers likely experienced greater sleep depth and fewer vigilance-related awakenings. The archaeological evidence from sites like Borg in Lofoten and Hofstadr in Iceland shows how carefully this communal sleep was organised. The central longhouse typically contained sleeping platforms along the walls, with the highest status area, often with bed closets or curtained sections, at one end. This arrangement created a sleep environment where unconscious vigilance was distributed across the group, allowing each individual, including the leaders, to experience deeper sleep cycles while maintaining collective security. Modern sleep research has demonstrated that this kind of vigilance sharing significantly improves sleep architecture, particularly the amount of REM and slow-wave sleep, the most restorative sleep phases. For Viking kings and jarls, sleeping within their hall, rather than in isolation, likely increased these crucial sleep phases, contributing to their reported mental acuity and physical recovery. Thyra understood the security dimensions of communal sleep. "We sleep in layers around our king," she explained to a new guard, "with the most alert and battle-ready nearest the doors and furthest from deep sleep. The king sleeps deepest because many ears listen for him." This intuitive security arrangement mirrors what sleep scientists have observed in contemporary hunter-gatherer groups, where sleep depth correlates with position in the sleeping group. Those in protected central positions experience more slow-wave and REM sleep. The social thermoregulation aspect of communal sleep offered another advantage in the cold northern climate. Archaeological evidence shows that Viking longhouses typically maintained one central hearth rather than multiple heat sources throughout the structure. The communal sleeping arrangement allowed body heat to contribute to overall warmth, particularly important during harsh winter months. Modern research has demonstrated that stable ambient temperature significantly improves sleep quality and duration. For Halfdan the healer, the communal sleep arrangement provided practical advantages. "I can hear when breathing changes or sleep grows troubled," he explained, allowing remedies before morning reveals full sickness. This monitoring function of communal sleep, where subtle changes in health could be noticed, represents another advantage lost in modern private sleeping arrangements. The Norse communal sleep pattern included important privacy provisions for elites. Archaeological evidence shows that high-status sleeping areas typically included curtains, screens, or partial walls, creating what anthropologists call privacy gradients, rather than binary private-public distinctions. This balanced approach provided the safety benefits of communal sleep, while still allowing for intimacy and status differentiation. King Olaf Haraldsson's sleeping area exemplified this balance. Historical descriptions and archaeological parallels suggest his bed platform included carved wooden panels on three sides and heavy wool curtains that could be drawn closed, creating a private space within the communal environment. This arrangement provided both the status marker appropriate for a king and the sleep security benefits of having trusted household members nearby. The communal sleep arrangement facilitated another practice that modern sleep science has identified as beneficial: consistent sleep and wake times across the social group. Archaeological evidence suggests that Viking households typically retired and rose together, creating what chronobiologists call social Zeitgebers, collective time cues that help regulate individual circadian rhythms. Astrid, the chieftain's wife, maintained these collective sleep rhythms through household management. When the evening meal ends, the hall is prepared for night, she instructed new servants. When morning light strengthens, the hall awakens together. This collective approach to sleep timing helps synchronize circadian rhythms within the group, something modern research has linked to improved sleep quality and mental health. The storytelling dimension of communal sleep created another advantage. Literary sources describe the custom of saga telling in the evening hours as the household prepared for sleep. Modern sleep research has identified structured narrative exposure before sleep as beneficial for both sleep onset and emotional processing during subsequent REM sleep. By engaging with cultural narratives before sleep, Viking elites may have optimized both how quickly they fell asleep and the emotional regulation functions of sleep itself. Jarl Sigurd was known for requesting specific sagas before sleep, often tales that related to challenges he was currently facing. Tonight, tell of how King Harald navigated the dispute between rival jarls he might request, seemingly understanding intuitively what modern sleep science has confirmed. Pre-sleep, cognitive content influences dream content and problem-solving during sleep. The communal sleep arrangement also facilitated what sleep scientists call social entrainment of circadian rhythms. Archaeological evidence shows that Viking longhouses typically had few windows and one main door, meaning light exposure was similar for all occupants. This shared light pattern helps synchronize melatonin production and release across the group, creating more consistent sleep-wake cycles than our modern individualized light exposure patterns. For King Canute, whose responsibilities often required travel between England and Denmark, this social entrainment would have provided significant advantages in managing what modern travellers would recognise as jet lag. Historical records suggest he travelled with a core household who maintained consistent routines, creating a portable social zeitgeber that would help stabilise his circadian rhythms despite geographical transitions. The Norse communal sleep pattern also included important developmental dimensions. Archaeological and literary evidence suggests that children slept in the same spaces as adults, with infants typically near mothers and older children grouped by age and gender. Modern developmental psychology has identified numerous benefits to this arrangement, including security-based attachment and the unconscious learning of adult sleep patterns, creating healthier lifetime sleep habits than the isolated sleep environments common in contemporary Western societies. As we examine the communal dimensions of Viking sleep, we see not primitive necessity, but a sophisticated social arrangement that provided multiple benefits for sleep quality. Distributed vigilance allowing deeper, individual sleep, social thermoregulation in cold environments, health monitoring, consistent timing cues, pre-sleep narrative exposure, synchronized circadian entrainment, and developmental advantages. These social factors gave Norse elites yet another significant advantage in sleep quality, one that many modern humans, despite our private bedrooms and advanced mattress technology, fail to achieve in our increasingly isolated sleeping arrangements. As we conclude our exploration of Viking sleep patterns, a compelling picture emerges of why Norse kings and elites likely experienced superior sleep quality compared to both their contemporaries and modern humans. Their sleep advantage arose not from a single factor, but from a sophisticated integration of environmental adaptation, physical practices, nutritional wisdom, herbal knowledge, psychological attitudes, and social arrangements, all aligned with what modern sleep science now recognises as optimal. King Harald Hardrada stood at the prow of his longship as it approached the Norwegian coast after a successful trading expedition. Despite weeks of travel, challenging negotiations, and the responsibilities of kingship, he remained alert and decisive, a resilience he attributed to the sleep wisdom passed down through generations of Norse rulers. "A king who masters sleep masters himself," he often told his sons, "and a king who masters himself can master kingdoms." This exploration of Viking sleep practices offers more than historical curiosity. It provides valuable insights for our modern relationship with rest. While we cannot, and should not, attempt to recreate all aspects of Viking life, several key principles emerge that remain relevant across the centuries. Harmony with natural light cycles. The Viking seasonal adaptation to changing daylight represents perhaps their greatest sleep advantage. Modern research confirms that aligning sleep patterns with natural light, using earlier bedtimes in winter and accepting seasonal variations, significantly improves sleep quality. Even in our electrified world, we can benefit from reducing artificial light exposure after sunset and increasing morning sunlight exposure. Embracing biphasic sleep. The Norse acceptance of segmented sleep patterns aligns with emerging research suggesting this may be our natural sleep architecture. Rather than viewing middle-of-the-night waking as insomnia, we might reconsider it as a natural vigilance period, a time for reflection, quiet creativity, or peaceful awareness before returning to sleep. Creating optimal sleep environments. The Viking attention to darkness, temperature control, and comfortable but natural bedding materials remains relevant. Modern sleep science confirms that truly dark sleeping spaces, slightly cool temperatures, and natural bedding materials significantly improve sleep architecture. Timing nutrition appropriately. The Norse practice of earlier main meals and lighter evening fare aligns perfectly with contemporary research on chrononutrition. Modern studies confirm that allowing several hours between eating and sleeping improves both sleep quality and metabolic health, leveraging plant wisdom. While modern pharmaceutical sleep aids have their place, the Viking use of mild herbal sleep supporters, particularly those with cumulative rather than acute effects, offers a gentler alternative worth reconsidering under appropriate medical guidance. Physical activity patterns. The Viking approach to varied, primarily morning and midday physical exertion, followed by gradually decreasing activity into the evening, creates ideal conditions for quality sleep. A pattern modern exercise physiology confirms as optimal. Psychological approaches to rest. Perhaps most relevant to our stress-filled modern lives is the Norse attitude towards sleep, as valuable, necessary, and meaningful, not merely downtime to be minimised. Their practices of mental compartmentalisation, evening wind-down rituals, and acceptance of natural rhythms offer powerful psychological tools for improving sleep. Reconsidering social dimensions. While the fully communal sleeping arrangements of Viking longhouses may not suit modern preferences, their understanding of sleep as a social activity with shared timing and collective security contains wisdom we might partially reclaim, perhaps through more consistent family sleep schedules or partner-supported sleep practices. Thyra, who had served 3 kings as a shield maiden, reflected on the sleep wisdom she had gathered over decades. The warrior who fights sleep fights a battle already lost. The wise warrior instead makes sleep an ally, understanding its rhythms, respecting its needs, and harnessing its power for the real battles of daylight hours. Archaeological evidence suggests this wisdom served Viking elites well. Skeletal remains from high-status burials show fewer stress markers and better overall health indicators than their contemporaries in other European societies. While we cannot directly measure their sleep quality across the centuries, the physical evidence supports the literary accounts of Norse rulers maintaining mental acuity and physical vigour well into what was, for the medieval period, advanced age. For Halfdan the healer, the connection between sleep and overall vitality was clear. Sleep is the great restoration, the time when wounds heal, strength returns, and the mind clears. A ruler who masters the art of sleep masters the art of rulership itself. Modern medical research has confirmed this ancient wisdom, demonstrating that sleep quality affects everything from cognitive function and emotional regulation to immune response and cardiovascular health. As our modern society faces what many sleep scientists call a sleep crisis, with insufficient and poor quality sleep affecting public health, safety, productivity, and well-being, the Viking approach to sleep offers valuable historical perspective. Their sleep practices were not primitive necessities, but sophisticated adaptations that aligned remarkably well with human biology. Adaptations we have lost in our artificially lit, constantly connected, schedule-driven modern world. King Olaf watched as his young son struggled to settle into sleep, the boy's mind still racing with the day's excitement. "The greatest strength," the king told him quietly, "is knowing when to set strength aside. Even Thor must rest his hammer. Even Odin must close his eye. Sleep is not weakness but wisdom. The wisdom to restore what daylight depletes." This Norse understanding of sleep as wisdom rather than weakness, as an active process of restoration rather than passive unconsciousness, perhaps represents their most valuable sleep lesson for our modern world. By reclaiming some elements of this ancestral sleep wisdom and integrating it with our scientific understanding, we might rediscover what Viking kings knew through observation and tradition: that mastering the art of sleep is fundamental to mastering the art of living well. While we cannot return to the longhouses and seasonal rhythms of the Viking Age, we can learn from their aligned approach to sleep, recognizing that quality rest comes not from a single practice or product, but from a holistic pattern of living that respects our biological nature. In this recognition lies the true legacy of Viking sleep wisdom, not just a historical curiosity, but a reminder of what we have lost and might yet reclaim in our quest for restorative rest.